Hey, how you doing, son?
Hey, Kahshan Greene, good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, man. I know I've been busy. You've been trying
Yeah,
to get
man.
in contact
Finally
with me.
got this guy on the call. Been trying to get this guy on the call all semester. So it's good to finally have you in the building, man. It's always good to see you. Always good. You always bring, that wonderful energy that you bring, man. And we just got you here today. Just want to talk to you about some little things. I'm not sure if you remember Professor Freeman, but
Yep.
while you was completing your MPA. But yeah, man, super guy, like
Yeah.
just
Good guy, man. I didn't get the chance to have him as a professor, but we spoke a few times, just kind of just brushing by over at the University of Idaho. And
yeah,
I wish I had him as a professor. Wish I
yeah,
did.
man.
I heard
He
all good
he's
things about
he's
him.
like a pinnacle of a guy. It's just unbelievable of his accomplishments and things like that. So,
100%.
just to kind of introduce, just the topic of tonight. I've been taking his class, and I think I took about two of his classes now, and this one has been more of my favorite. Talking about the conflicts of leadership, man, and
Mhm.
it's a wonderful class to end on before going out into the real world, and knowing that you're in the real world and stuff like that. First, before we even get into the interview, I just want to just tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about what you've been doing this past year, man. And how's everything been going since you graduated with the MPA?
Yeah, man. Like I told you before, when you finish your master's recently, and congrats on that again.
Thank you.
Um, it's so much that can happen in a year, right? So this time last year, I was sitting at the house collecting unemployment check, like a lot of people.
Here we
And
go.
the same time this year, this is my second job within less than a year, and I got a promotion. So right now, I'm an account executive rep at Amperity. You can see in the background. But yeah, that's been kind of me this year, going from company to company, startups, kind of bringing my own brand of things, my own ideas, and really trying to find a company where I can affect on that macro and micro level right away. So at Amperity, I feel like that's kind of been something that they allowed me to do so far, and it's been a blessing. So that's kind of what I've been working on, and kind of helping my brother out with his company as well. But yeah, it's been a lot this year, but a lot is good. So yeah.
Yeah, man. What they say? They say busy, booked, and blessed. So the three B's, you got
100%.
those, man. So that's what it's all about. So, just to kind of go into the interview, man, and just to kind of, reintroduce the topic again. Like I said, we've been talking about the conflicts of leadership, been talking about, different situations that leaders are put in, how to respond in those type of situations, what type of leader you, all that good stuff, man. So just to kind of crack into the top of things, what do you see today in your profession as one of the conflicts of leadership, and why?
Man, that's a great question. To give you my straight opinion, I think one of the biggest conflicts of leadership right now has a lot to do with the lack of diversity in certain spaces.
Mm.
And obviously that's a big one, but I don't think people realize how much leadership is affected by that, right? In the sense that when you diversity is bringing not just people that look different into these spaces, but bringing a different philosophy, different ideology, a different culture, a different understanding of how certain people accept
There we go.
feedback, how
Yes.
people just interact in general. So I think a huge conflict with leadership is that certain leaders don't know how to, one, motivate certain employees that come from different spaces and backgrounds, and two, how to really speak to those employees to get them to be successful, right? Because that's the whole premise of a leader, is you want to put each employee or each worker in the best position to be successful.
There you
And
go.
it's really difficult to do that when you don't have a communication barrier and you guys aren't speaking on the same frequency. So to be honest, that's my opinion why I think what I think is one of the biggest conflicts at leadership is just the ultimate lack of diversity from the higher ups.
There we go. There we go,
Mhm.
man. That's so rich, man. Such a rich answer, and it brings me right into my next question, which is, do you view yourself as a leader because of your expert knowledge that you possess, or because of your ability to motivate others?
Great question. And I think it's a combination of both. I think to be a good leader, you first have to have the respect of the people that you're leading, one, right? So knowledge is big, right? Knowledge is huge, but some of the smartest people in the room can't get somebody to do, the simplest task. So you always, you have to have that kind of, uncoachable thing that I like to talk about is something that you really can't coach, you really can't teach. And that's, having the ability to connect with others, right? So that's how you motivate. That's how you can motivate people. So being able to have that niche where you can motivate people, but also you have some type of credibility behind you and you have knowledge only sends people right in a direction to, follow behind a good leader. So yeah, I consider myself a leader. And I would like to think that I possess both. And I think I possess both. So yeah, that's my kind of understanding of, a good leader.
Okay, yeah, man. I like that question, man. I mean, I like that answer. Not the question. I actually like the answer because you talk about both. You talk about, possessing the knowledge, but you also talk about that uncoachable ability to motivate others. And in terms of that possessible knowledge, it's like on the surface level, that can probably be coached, and you know what I mean? That's something that we can develop. But as far as the ability to motivate others, that's just something that you're born with, man. So I do like your answer, and the combination of both is a great answer. But I'm gonna put you in the rock and the hard place, man. And I'm gonna ask you, if you had to pick, which type of leader do you think would be more effective in today's society, and why?
Okay. Between essentially, being, expertise and knowledge versus the ability to motivate.
Yes. Of course, it depends on the vocation. But if you had to answer, what would you say?
That's a great question, man. In today's time, I'm gonna give you a direct answer, but I'm gonna say it really is gonna come down to the type of field that these employees are in.
Yes.
If it's a kind of more technical based field where employees are having to be really technical and they kind of need to know knowledge and expertise, then I'll say you kind of got to have knowledge and expertise as a leader in that type of space. If you're in a space where more customer service type of thing, when you're kind of not really really having to really think, but really just here, there, kind of, that type of field, you kind of got to have, be a good motivator, because you don't really need an expertise in that type of field or those type of fields where you're not really on the technical side. It's just kind of ABC, 1, 2, 3. So it depends on the space. If I was to choose in my space right now, I'm going to go with motivate. And the reason why I'm gonna say, without giving you a bunch of fluff, I think motivating is the one. Is that we're in a space, right? You graduated with your MPA degree. We're in a space where motivating others to make you successful, because this is a capitalistic society, is one of the biggest gimmies that are the biggest things that leaders across the world are trying to still figure out, is how to motivate, how to incentivize, how to create a motivation and a why for certain employees. So I feel like that's just something that can't be bought. It can't, if you have a leader that can motivate people, at the end of the day, you're not dealing with, just completely ignorant or dumb employees. So at the same time, they know at least at some point what to do without even having someone tell them what to do. But to have that motivating factor, or a leader that can motivate, only is going to put them in a position to be more successful. So I think, again, personally, I'm going to go with the concept of motivating as the choice for me.
Wow, man. I don't think you could say it better than that, man. You stole the words right out of my mouth. I'm going to kind of flip the script on you and take you into a different topic. What is your view on confirmation bias, and how do you think it ties into leadership?
Okay. Before I give you my answer, give me the definition of confirmation bias.
So confirmation bias is just basically having a thought. In a nutshell, it's basically having a thought. So say you, Kahshan, say you think the business Amperity, say you think they have an 85% hiring rate, and you go out and you research and you see that Amperity hires most of its people, but you don't do any research in the ladder to see if it's actually 85%. So you just automatically go out, you have a thought, and you go out and see anything that, implies that thought, or that, draws that thought up how you think it is, and you confirm confirmation bias, like you see it as confirmation as to have that bias that you already have.
Okay. All right. So essentially, your question is, what is your view on confirmation bias and how do you think it ties into leadership?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's somewhat of a problem because it's kind of viewing things in a black and white situation, right? Kind of taking things as face value. And, having my criminology background, my sociology background, there's something that we always talked about in terms of understanding data, being able to read data. It's something that people always talk about is that, and I'm sure you may have heard this, but they say, as ice cream sales go up, crime rates go up, right? And, it's a causation, but it's not actually, stemmed from the same type of tree, right? Ice cream sales are going up because it's the summertime and it's hot and more people are eating ice cream, and crime rates are going up because it's the summer and people have more time on hands, so they're getting into a little more trouble. There's no correlation between the two, right? So if I'm drawing the exact parallel, I think sometimes when you take things as face value from a leadership standpoint, when you're dealing with people who are people are creatures of havoc, and you can't really put a type of factual or black and white stance on people, because people are sporadic and they do things differently depending on who they are, where they come from. So I think it promotes a bunch of problems, right? Because it's hard to kind of deviate or act as a leader basing everything off of confirmation bias. It puts you in a problematic situation.
There you go. And from a journalistic approach, I got my undergrad in journalism and mass media. It's just as a reporter alone, not even a leader, as someone who's reporting the news, it's your journalistic duty to not have confirmation bias. It's and even with the leader, how can you categorize yourself as a leader if you take everything at face value, and the things that you think you probably actually don't know because you only confirmed them through having confirmation bias. So you know what I mean? It's just kind of counterproductive to any profession in general. And I think it's a lot of leaders out there who have confirmation bias, unfortunately. So that's kind of why I asked you the question. It's just to kind of see how do you see it? And I would agree and say that.
I think to add on, I think it's one of those things that I think we'll always have to deal with, right? We play football, and it's kind of hard, to not have a bias in anything. And I think some of the best leaders, they're able to kind of, push their biases aside, which is hard. I mean, it's kind of impossible to push that aside, but great leaders don't act off of, as much off of their feeling and who they think or who they want to be, in that position, but actually who's performing, right? And, they're not just taking off of, face value, whatever, someone else is saying or whatever they're reading. So I think that's what deviates great leaders from, not so good leaders.
Okay. I like it, man. I like it. So as far as the next question, now we're going to be getting into role theory. And role theory is the idea that a person's stance on a variety of issues depends strictly on where that individual sits within the organization. How do you perceive this? And do you think that this can be counterproductive to the success of an organization?
Great question. So essentially pretty much someone who's like sitting in a certain chair, like a VP or something like that. Right. They kind of act in that way, essentially what you're saying?
Like they're only see-ish, like basically, okay, so I work for the city of Pullman, right? Mm-hmm. And over the summer, I taught a process improvement class to frontline workers. So as we know, and as we see today and every day, management, the perspective of management is totally different from their frontline workers, you know know what I mean? So it's just like, it depends on where you're at within the organization, the perspective that you're going to have, you know what I mean? And management can think that frontline workers are doing things so wrong and can do things so much better. But when you go talk to a frontline worker, he or she can kind of say, well, we have to do this by hand, and we can really improve.
No, I get, it's crazy. It's like it's been what, 2 years. So like, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, man, I remember going over this stuff, but yeah, top down management. And it is the issue. It's a big issue. It's a big issue because there's a I would say a language barrier. And what I mean by language barrier is that there's a barrier between communication between top-down management to the bottom, understanding from those head of chairs, those VPs, understanding what the frontline individuals are doing. And people who usually are leaderships are companies and businesses who usually operate in that way, especially during this time. They're putting themselves, and they have put themselves in a very problematic situation, because at the end of the day, in most companies and businesses, the frontline workers are the first engine to revenue for these companies and businesses. And if you're, telling someone that they need to do something because you feel like, in a perfect world, this is what they should do, but actually in reality, it's actually slowing down their process, making them slower, whatever they're doing, making them less efficient, and actually, decreasing the revenue for your company, it can become very problematic. So leaders who operate in that manner, it's just not good. And usually good leaders, try to put themselves in that position, and the best leaders actually came from the position of the frontline workers. So they kind of have that lens from both sides.
Exactly. I wouldn't agree. I can't agree more. And I've actually had a boss by the name of Art Garrow. I think you probably did some work with the guy, and he was a frontline worker, and now he's a superintendent of a department within the city. Right. And just to hear his take and how he sees things versus how a frontline worker sees things, with him being management, on the surface level, you would probably think that he sees things a lot different, but he actually sees things a lot the same because he comes from that front line and he understands. So 100%. Yeah, man, I firmly agree, and I think that's something that should really be addressed in the professional world.
Our girl's my guy, by the way. It's my guy.
He's my guy. Yeah. Anyways, last question, man. Earlier, you described to me what you've seen as a conflict within leadership. I guess my question to you now, since we done did all this talking, is: do you think that this problem can be solved? I think you was talking about diversity and inclusion and stuff like that. So do you think that those problems can be solved? If so, describe how you will solve them.
Do I think these problems can be solved? Yes, I think these problems could be solved. The probability of these problems being solved are very low personally. Reason being, it's a lot of why, but in kind of narrowing it down, I think the problem can be solved simply by having diversity. But when people ask for diversity, it's not just, bringing in another, I'm in tech sales, so I'm going to speak in the tech sales way. It's not bringing in more salesmen, right? It's not bringing in more saleswomen or bringing in frontline workers. That's not diversity. That's not going to make changes because we're talking about leadership, right? So what's going to make change is actually having diversity into these head of chairs, right? These VPs, these head of marketing, CEOs, CROs. That's going to bring in the true diversity. But given, bringing in other, diverse groups into frontline workers and not being in the decision maker room or being in positions of power is counterintuitive. It only it reinforces the problem, because as people point out diversity, to go, oh, well, we're diverse. We have X amount of number of Latinx employees, or X amount of number of African American employees, and so on and so forth. But it's not about the number, the bottom line number, because that can be skewed, because you're not having a diverse background if those people aren't in positions of power. Exactly. Now, to answer your question, could it change? Yes, it could change if those people are in positions of power. The probability of it changing, personally, I'm a little pessimistic about it. Reason being because I think this is a capitalistic society, and I think the people who are in these positions of power are not willing to give up their power. So personally, I think to change that, these minority groups have to start putting themselves in position to have their own ownerships and have their own companies, so that they can have their own positions of power and their own seat at their table, not a seat at someone else's table that have their house. And that's just kind of my opinion on it. I'm not beating it down. I think it could happen. I just think the probability of these people who are in these positions of power actually relinquishing their power and giving it to someone else is just very unlikely.
Wow, Kahshan, man, you could put a cherry on top of that, man, and it still wouldn't taste as good as the way you said it. So, like I'm saying, man,
Appreciate it, man.
it was a pretty airtight interview, man. You covered everything from top to bottom. Like I said, you always bring your energy with you. I love having you tonight, man, and I really appreciate your time. You go and you keep, kicking butt in the way that you're doing in life, man.
Appreciate it. And the same thing goes for you, man. Like I said, congrats on the Masters. The sky is only the limit. I was unemployed, depressed at home this time last year, and now, I already got promoted. I'm at my second company, and I'm doing good. And I'm only looking to go up into Professor Freeman, Dr. Freeman. I've seen everything you've been doing on LinkedIn, and congrats to you as well. You guys both keep killing it, and we'll keep making changes and keep on better in this world that we live in. So appreciate it, Rasan.
Absolutely, Kahshan. Thank you so much for your time. You have a good one.
Likewise, man.